So we're recording now. Welcome. I'm Kristen Boyle, and I am a yoga therapist and somatic life mentor. I specialize in working with women through pregnancy, postpartum, and life transitions. So I can support women through feelings of anxiety, depression, healing from birth trauma, or just dealing with the general overwhelm of being a mom. I also support couples, facilitating the conversation and connection so that you can truly be in partnership in this journey of parenting. And so for this is a recording for moms who are pregnant, who are wanting to practice yoga during their pregnancy. So with me, I have Kelsey Mueller. And Kelsey, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Mueller. I am a mom of soon to be 4. I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 16-month-old. And then this baby is due January 1st, so well into my 3rd trimester. And I am a yoga instructor. I also teach prenatal yoga.
Wonderful. And I'm so glad to have you because you have lots of experience here.
Thank you.
So just starting by finding out a little bit more about you and your journey. When I first met you, Kelsey, you were in my 200-hour teacher training, and you were a mom of 2. Had you practiced prenatal yoga already?
I had not. No, I actually only started my yoga journey after my 2nd baby was born.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And so then you dove in from 200-hour into my prenatal yoga teacher training. And by that time you were pregnant with your 3rd. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. I mean, of course, diving into yoga, not pregnant, I knew I wanted to go down the path of helping moms and babies. And so taking the prenatal class, especially while pregnant, was just an amazing experience and a huge learning period of time for me. And I had such an easy pregnancy with Felix, just body, mind, just the whole preparation of labor. Prenatal yoga was more of a tool and resource for me than any birth class I had taken with any of my previous 2 kids.
That's wonderful. And of course, that's always what I want to hear. But can you pinpoint why the prenatal yoga was so significant for you?
I think probably the most significant thing is body awareness. Because during labor and pregnancy, of course, being able to pinpoint and direct and really nail down exactly what you're feeling and exactly where you're feeling it or how, or being aware of emotions even, because if you've ever been pregnant or been around a pregnant person, you know that roller coaster of emotions can be, in its own a challenge. And so just being aware of what was going on and being able to then, move forward with how to approach a situation or how to approach dealing with an ache or a pain in the correct way, really just made a huge difference.
I love it. And that sounds like exactly why I think yoga is so beneficial for anyone, but very specifically for pregnancy and for being a mom, because those aches and pains and that emotional roller coaster, it's not going to be the highs and lows like pregnancy, but you're kind of on it. And so the more awareness you can bring to it, the more you can work through whatever it is that you're working with. And even the aches and pains in the body, if you're aware of them and you can do something about them, you can stretch or you can strengthen or you can just take a break, or
Exactly.
that little piece of awareness, like, oh, I'm carrying my baby on my right side all the time and my right shoulder is hurting. Okay, now maybe I'll carry my baby on my left side for a while.
Yes. So you have to be aware of it to be able to adjust and alter and yes.
That's all of it. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we dive into some practices that that women might need to know about, so that, if you're wanting to practice in a public class, there, of course you can, but there are some drawbacks to it. One is you won't get the community that you would get in a prenatal kind of setting, which, at least for me, the prenatal setting is all about developing community, conversation, and getting really real with the ups and the downs of pregnancy. Not everyone is blissful and bountiful. Some are just downright miserable and wanting to get through this stage, and so just that community can be a safe place where that's created. And also the practice is tailored to the pregnant body. So those are benefits of the prenatal class itself, but not everyone has access to a prenatal class. It's not always convenient. And I want to acknowledge that for some, the community in the regular yoga studio is important. And so they want to still continue their practice. So let's have this conversation really about some safe practices that moms can take into a class that's not really made for them. And so I'll just go through really quickly. There's a few, just a list. I have a list of things to note. And so I'll make that list, and then Kelsey, you and I can talk about it, and Kelsey can do some demonstrations of things. So very quickly, the list is doing closed twists. So that would be twisting towards a leg that's lifted. Back bends that stretch through the belly. Prone poses, so that's lying down on your belly. That's kind of an obvious one. Supine poses, so lying on your back, especially for an extended amount of time. Doing core work with your belly up, so doing crunches or any, boat pose can be an iffy kind of posture. Then inversions, which can also be an obvious one, going upside down anytime your head is below your heart. Hot yoga. And then breathing techniques that involve breath retention or heat building kind of breath. So that's kind of a short list, but let's dissect it a little bit. So let's go back to the closed twists as the first one. So Kelsey, what have you noticed in pregnancy about closed twists, and what kind of modifications do you make?
So with closed twists, for one, as your belly is growing, you just really can't do it. It's just really not a comfortable thing to do when you're working with something that is not necessarily squishy and doesn't move out of your way. I just take all of my twists open. So big open chest twisting like this, it feels fantastic. So anytime there is a closed twist, I just modify it for myself. And for my students to be big and open and creating space in the body rather than closing it off in any way.
Yeah. Would you mind showing us maybe a prayer twist or a revolved crescent kind of twist, and what you would not do, and then what you do?
Yes. So taking from like a chair, because there's a lot of revolved twists with chairs. Instead of bringing my elbow down to my knee, which obviously I can't do, a big open twist like this, creating space through the chest, I'm still getting the same effect. Mm-hmm. Same thing with anything really in with twisting, bringing it open, not closed this way. You can see my rotation just isn't there. Not going to force it, obviously, but this is just much more comfortable, open, accessible, and you're still part of it without feeling left out.
Yeah, so keeping the arms open rather than trying to crank that elbow across the knee like we do in so many yoga classes and yoga.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's been brought to my awareness after practicing prenatal for so long, then going to a regular class, how many times there is like the closed twist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we do this a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot in the regular classes. And so just knowing where you can go and what you can do allows you to continue to practice without breaking that kind of internal state or that internal gaze that the yoga practice is so good at bringing us into.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't mind going back to your mat, show us a little bit about your warrior stance that you had.
Yeah.
At least what I talk about with my students is that don't worry about heel to heel alignment or heel to toe alignment, but rather what kind of alignment are you feeling or working with?
Yeah, I much prefer like railroad tracks versus lining up so tight.
Yeah.
It's just not as accessible in my hips. I feel a lot more pressure and tightness in my hips than I do if I open my stance up. Again, I just feel really nice and open. I also feel really solid in my foundation and not wobbling. I'm really sturdy, nice and grounded because, of course, center of gravity is completely shifted forward in the midsection. So being able to widen your stance and not worry so much about that heel to inner arch alignment is just so much sturdier in any of the warriors. Warrior one, I feel like especially.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, your body is opening up. Your body has to open up. So have that reflected in your foundation and your stance. And I like that you're talking about how that feels more grounded. And I know as a yoga teacher, we get a lot of questions of what's my alignment supposed to be, and am I doing this right? And I would just encourage moms, like, just let that go for now, because if it feels sturdy in your body, then it's right. And that's really the perspective that I like for prenatal.
Yeah, I teach in a manner of like, there's enough uncomfortable going on in your body right now.
Yeah.
But this is a great time to be comfortable and to let all of those like nitpicky, if you're practicing yogi and you're like, no, this is my alignment. It's okay.
Yeah.
It feels good. It feels grounding and supportive and just really nice.
Wonderful. Yeah. And so another thing, while we're on this wide stance, that I didn't mention in my short list before is forward folds. And you have your 2 blocks there. Do you want to demonstrate something about forward folding?
Yes. So
that's kind of impossible, isn't it?
Yes. Forward folding, you obviously can't go too far without running into your thighs. So we open up our stance really wide so that your belly can fall through. Also, especially in this pregnancy, I really have noticed the increase of blood that is circulating in my body, and going up and down in that swan dive is not comfortable. It makes me dizzy. It didn't necessarily as much with another pregnancy, but still practicing in the manner of not swan diving down or coming up, but rather bending the knees first and then straightening out, and then rising in the same type of manner, is a lot more, again, supportive. My head doesn't go straight down below my heart. I don't get dizzy going in and out this way. But wide legs, my belly is able to fall through my legs rather than closer together. That's all I can bend forward. It's much more accessible wide leg.
Yeah, and your feet were basically mat width apart, so really wide, so really
wide
in that space. Yeah. And then I like that you bend your knees, you place your elbows on your thighs. That is a great stable place to gain balance. And then that you're not letting your head go below your heart. And it's not that you can't in pregnancy. It's more a factor of like you said, the dizziness of coming from head below the heart to standing, or if you have reflux or heartburn, or if you have nausea, all of that's going to be a factor in how comfortable or uncomfortable it is to go head below the heart. So that's a great modification that I think can be used easily in yoga classes.
Yes, super easy. And especially with that nausea at the beginning, you may not have all of the other stuff coming in that you do later on in pregnancy, but at the beginning, that nausea can really hit you hard, getting your heart or your head below your heart. And even now in my third trimester, I'm finding that the nausea or even just the indigestion, I teach a class at night, and I often just can't even get my head down. So I find that I'm in a halfway lift for the entire time everybody else is in a forward fold, just because it feels better. Like, I don't want to make myself feel bad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is not a time to really force the poses if they're not feeling good. The whole idea is to take care of yourself and keep your body mobile. That's the main thing. So awesome.
Yeah. And blocks are so nice.
Yes.
To have. You can always use your shins or thighs. The blocks just make a huge difference, at least for me and my students in class.
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend anyone practicing prenatal yoga always have 2 blocks, at least.
At least, yeah. Sometimes 4.
Sometimes more, yeah. At the front of the mat and the back of the mat, right?
Yes, I'll just surround yourself.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So the next one is back bends that stretch the belly. And some examples of this would be camel pose, wheel pose, dancer's pose when you're really trying to get like foot to head kind of extreme posture, and even the upward facing dog. So if you're in a vinyasa, and especially a power vinyasa that uses the Chaturanga Dandasana flow into up dog and then down dog, up dog is something that I think gets overlooked a lot in terms of, I see women practicing while pregnant and doing the up dog, and I so much want to tell them, like, that's not really your friend right now. So so let's start with that. What are some options that they could have if the vinyasa teacher says, okay, chaturanga, up dog, down dog, what could she do?
I generally just skip that. If you are practicing chaturanga, earlier on, you may not feel like, you can't not do it, but especially later on, I always drop my knees, to do it, going down and back up. Then you don't really need to necessarily go into that up dog, but you can always just come into cow instead and get the same sensation without really now that front line.
Yeah, I like that. And I usually, when I don't have a lot of time to have a conversation with a pregnant student, I will say, drop it to your knees, do a cat-cow. That's always the best option. If you do want to do that chaturanga like you did, the modification with the knees down, that's going to be the best bet. Always make sure that you brace, so you're hugging your baby in. If you can feel that sensation, like hug the baby in so the core is super supported. And then you'll just lower as far as you're able to go. Yeah, you can see it with Kelsey's belly when she hugs the baby in. There's a significant difference. And that's abdominal toning, and that's toning that you want to have. And so in my prenatal classes, we don't really do this pose because the class is completely modified for the pregnant body. But in a public class, you need to be able to practice to some degree and fit in these things. So that's one option. Yeah.
Yeah, I often just do my own breathing during a chaturanga up dog. I'll just come to cat cow And inhale, relax the belly. Exhale, hug baby in. And
Mm-hmm.
my own little abdominal exercise that I'm doing, but it's benefiting transverse abdominis, which not only helps back pain, but that's what you're using to push during labor. So strengthening those muscles and strengthening the muscles holding baby up and in, without really, letting it go. Just whoop.
Right. So creating some safe abdominal toning, which we all, we talk about core strength all the time. So I think it's really good to know that there are safe ways that you can maintain core strength throughout your pregnancy. And in fact, you should maintain core strength throughout pregnancy. But we just need to know how to access it properly.
Yes.
And in the prenatal class, of course, you get more specific in how to do that. But these are some very quick and easy ways to modify. So let's talk about the reason why, just very quickly, is that the rectus abdominis, or your six-pack, right? And they're held together by the linea alba, so a piece of connective tissue or fascia. And in pregnancy, in 100% of pregnancy, this separates. And it has to separate, because where else are your muscles going to go except towards the sides, right? So what we don't want to do is overstretch that little piece of connective tissue. It doesn't heal like a muscle would heal. So if you overstretch it, you're putting yourself more at risk for a hernia to happen. And a hernia would be when, it sounds gross, but when your organs start to kind of protrude out. And in pregnancy, you'll start to see a little bit of a bulge right there at that linea alba. And so what we want to do is just protect it. Your belly's already in a back bend, basically. And so when we do back bends, focus on the upper back, right? Focus on the pecs, focus on getting the shoulders back, because once you're holding baby, you're going to be shoulders forward constantly. So use this time to, strengthen the upper back, squeeze the shoulders back. And so you're already there, Kelsey, but let's talk about camel. Something you can do for a back bend if camel's offered. Maybe bring a block between your knees so we can show that, because the block between the knees is going to create a bit of stability in the body. So you have something to hold to. And as you draw the inner thighs closer together, that goes right into deep core strength. So that's really supportive, and you want that to happen. And then what would you do for going into a camel, Kelsey, in terms of accentuating the upper back opening and not getting into the belly?
So you can always cactus your arms, drawing your heart upwards, drawing the shoulder blades together on your back. I'm getting the exact same sensation that I would not pregnant, that I would in a deep camel. Squeezing my legs against the block, and then really just accentuating the openness of the shoulder. But you can see I'm not bending back. I'm literally just drawing the shoulder blades together, lifting the heart. And this is a fantastic sensation. It feels good. And I just don't need more than this.
Yeah, I think that's really important to notice. You don't need more than this, right? There's so much happening in pregnancy. There's so many changes happening in the body, in the, hormones, in the mental state, the emotional state, all of it. There's so much that, why would you need more? So this is a real time to, it's about just noticing what's enough.
Yeah.
Being with that.
Exactly. And just bringing that body awareness to what you are doing instead of what you're not doing.
I like that.
Yeah. You don't need to do anything else. Like, if you're being aware of your body, you can feel where you're working. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Awareness of your body. Why don't you show the camel with your hands on your low back?
Yeah. So again, just
that is kind of a brace.
You can gaze up. But again, squeezing my thighs so that I'm not dropping in. And I'm just really, this brings it more in through my chest and the front of my shoulders than this where I feel it more in my back.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a little bit different sensation with the hands on the hips. And so you can, when you're practicing in a public class, you can choose which one do you want to do, where do you want to take your arms, what sensations you want to feel. And the camel pose can be really nice because you're actually lifting up through the sternum and the chest, so you can almost get a little bit more space for a breath.
Yes, yes. Especially in that third trimester where
Yeah.
maybe in ribs, just lifting and getting the rib cage to come up feels so fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So it's kind of the same thing if the teacher is teaching a wheel pose, a bridge can be a good place to go. A block between the knees for the bridge pose, if you want to demonstrate that one. So again, the block between the knees creates a little bit of engagement, which allows for a good deal of stability. Oh, and Kelsey is demonstrating also as you lay down, roll to the side, use your hands to guide yourself down, and then roll onto your back. Because again, that separation of the rectus abdominis, called diastasis recti, that's what we want to protect. So yeah. Good demonstration of that.
So hugging baby in, you can see.
So always creating some strength in the core. So that abdominal toning, and then lifting the hips away. And you may not go as high. Kelsey can probably attest to, I bet the belly is much heavier than pre-pregnancy. And so she may not go as high in the hips, but you're still getting strength. You're strengthening the glutes and the hamstrings. And you're also able to stretch a little bit across the front of the hips, which is needed as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a stretch at this point going on to the medium setting of the block. I still feel comfortable, but this definitely feels a lot better.
Yeah.
On the lower setting. So adjusting block height if you're resting on the block. Pregnancy, just having all of these modifications in your pocket and knowing that props are there to support you. It's seriously day by day my practice changes. Just you think you're going to feel a certain way one day, and some days you just don't have it in you, and that's totally fine. And just that body awareness, once again, just knowing when you need the support and when you can take on more of the strength.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Being with what is. This is your first dive into that. You're going to feel different every single day, and then once you have a baby, all plans are set aside if baby is crying or needs to change or needs to eat or is sick or whatever happens. So yes, motherhood is definitely about being with what is.
Yes.
So you get to practice it right here. Let's show dancer really quickly, just because dancer is such a nice stretch to the quadriceps and to the hip flexors, which they're getting a lot of work during pregnancy, so it can feel really good. However, just like we've been talking about, you don't need to go into the belly. This does not need to be a big, huge opening stretch. It's not about going to your maximum. But yeah, so Kelsey's demonstrating that really nicely. You start with the knees together, so you're getting that inner thighs, pelvic floor strength, then draw your leg back just far enough. And really focus on the balance, because balance is core strengthening. So these balancing poses, use them for that. Yeah. You know that there's lots of benefit. You don't need to go to the biggest iteration of the pose to get the benefits of the pose.
Not at all. A lot of my students find that they just stay right here and focus more just kicking that heel towards the glute and lining up the knee to really accentuate.
It's a really good quad stretch for a lot of people, so that's a good one.
This is enough, and then we typically stay here for a minute before we kick the foot into the hand and really kicking the foot into the hand, bringing that awareness to the strength will kind of also keep you from going too far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, finding the strength and the balance. That's enough to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, I got a great stretch. And I'm very flexible and typically am the one that,
Yeah.
gets it up high, but it feels great.
Yeah, I find that in pregnancy, the focus on stability, not mobility, on stability, because your body is changing so much that what you really need is that foundation. And that's where the strength lies. Otherwise you can get a nice stretch, but the strength really comes in the stability.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, good. What about prone poses? So your teacher is teaching cobra pose or locust or floor bow. What kind of things do you suggest for those?
So again, in that cat-cow, that's always just a great substitution for any belly down poses. If I'm teaching a public class and I have one pregnant person, I often just say during this belly down part, just do cat cows, or you can do the abdominal breathing, strengthening your core. For bow, you can do a baby Shavasana. So, wait, baby in, extend, I'm running out of room, reach back, grab, and just kick into the foot. I'm getting a great opening. I'm getting a great stretch. It's just kind of our pregnancy modified bow for that one. But otherwise, I typically just go to cat-cow because it feels so fantastic in pregnancy, in your hips and through your shoulders and chest. And I really exaggerate on my cows instead of really dropping my belly. I exaggerate more of spreading my hips. So you can't see me doing it, but that's what I always focus on in my practice, is really imagining my sit bones drawing really far apart.
Which is great for labor and delivery.
Yes, and it feels amazing to really open up that lower back like that.
Yeah, that's really a good tip. And also I'd say that in the cow pose, you can squeeze the shoulders back and get that strength of the upper back. As we talked about, your shoulders are going to start rounding forward if they're not already, because the breasts are so heavy. But once you're holding baby all the time, that rounding forward kind of posture happens. So here you can offset it by really strengthening, drawing your shoulder blades back, and even lift your chin and get a little bit more of that opening right to the front of the neck.
Yeah, that really is like a strength, like really working on it. That is.
Another place, if you don't mind going back where you were, Kelsey, another place you can go is puppy pose. And this, we haven't gotten to inversions yet, but this is a nice modification for a downward facing dog if weight bearing on the wrists feels like too much. Again, of course, you want to hug the baby in, so you want a little bit of engagement, abdominal toning to support you, so you're not just dumping into the pose. But it's nice stretch for the shoulders and the upper back and chest. So that's something you can do if the class is doing some belly down back bending work. Yep, a block between beneath the forehead is really nice if that's too much of a stretch for your shoulders. It gives some relief to wrists. Like I said, if you're tired of doing down dogs and wondering somewhere to go, that can be a nice place. Some other options I would say is toes pose. Do you want to demonstrate that? This is a nice one to hold and breathe through. It can be really intense. It stretches the fascia on the bottoms of the feet, which is really good during pregnancy. It's good for anyone if you run or if you wear high heels. But if you think of a contraction lasting 1 minute, and you also think about in the vinyasa class, the teacher's probably spending about 1 minute teaching that belly down, back bend pose. This is a great opportunity for you to focus on some deep breathing and staying with something that's uncomfortable and staying just a little bit longer. So that's another option. And otherwise, you can just sit and breathe. There's nothing wrong with just taking a break and breathing, child's pose, whatever you need.
Drinking some water.
Drinking some water, yeah. Use these pauses in class as a break. It's not like you have to muscle through every single pose like you did pre-pregnancy. You know, it's more about taking care of yourself now. Enjoy those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about supine poses, lying on your back, and just going into what's happening. The main reason, and you may hear it from your doctor, don't lie on your back, you have to sleep on your left side. And I think new research is showing that we need to soften that message a little bit. You can lie on your back. It might be uncomfortable because the baby is just kind of heavy right there, pressing down in your abdominals, but also your body's going to give you a signal to move before your baby is affected. You'll feel nauseous, you'll feel dizzy, you'll feel tingly, any of those sensations. And that's just your message to roll over. And that'll happen when you're sleeping as well. I hear lots of pregnant mamas saying, oh, I woke up and I was on my back. Did I hurt my baby? Well, you woke up. So no, you didn't hurt your baby, right? Your body sent you a signal of like, roll over now. So if there are supine poses taught, like sometimes we do stretches with the legs, laying on our backs, or legs up the wall, figure 4, and then of course Shavasana. Those are the ones that really come to mind. I know you don't have a blanket with you, Kelsey, but do you have like a pillow maybe?
I also I teach at a studio that doesn't have bolsters. So
okay. Oh, good.
I do. I typically grab a couple of extra yoga mats because usually studios have extra yoga mats, and I can even demo with just one.
Okay. So all that you need to be safe on your back is just a little bit of elevation right underneath the sacrum, which is the back of the pelvis. And so there are many different variations. Ask your yoga teachers to help you, but Kelsey is setting up a nice one for Shavasana. And if you have bolsters, this little incline that she's on can be a little bit higher. You can have the back block at the tallest setting and then the next one at the medium setting. She's got it at the medium and the low setting. Trying to show you with my hand. I feel like I'm doing this funny dance. But,
yeah, no, depending on which bolster you have and how sturdy it is, like using my mat definitely isn't as sturdy as some bolsters. The lower setting just is a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to if you want to feel a little bit more reclined, that low setting is really nice.
Yeah. And Kelsey's again demonstrating roll to your side, lay yourself down, and then roll onto your back. And so here, this is a really nice place to go for Shavasana. You can bring your feet together and your knees wide. You can, yeah, there you go. You can bring your feet wide and your knees together. Or you can straighten your legs. So really it's what feels good to you. This is a beautiful place too to bring one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly, and just focus on that connection with your baby. I feel like that internal connection, just really making that connection with them. This is a beautiful time for it.
And typically after practice, I've heard from all of my students and personal experience that's when baby's like, woo, let's party.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun to just feel them around in there in that moment of calm and yeah.
When I was teaching a class yesterday and I saw the movement in one of my students, I could just see the baby moving around. It was really cool.
Yeah, I also like to do, if they're doing a reclined figure 4, I'll do figure four like this.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do figure four right there.
Bring it nice and close. Get the exact same sensation for figure four on the ramp.
Yeah, yeah. And you can do figure four seated. And then again, as I said, you can just a little bit, a blanket folded up underneath your low back is enough. That as long as baby weight's feeling okay for you, you're going to be safe to be on your back. So that's for legs up the wall and figure four. So yeah, good.
Just a block too on the lowest setting.
Yeah.
For a few of the poses, just for that little bit of elevation under my hips, especially in legs up the wall.
Yeah. So especially if legs up the wall is being offered in the middle of the room, this block under the hips can be really good. I also, for my practice, I like a block between the inner thighs, so I have some squeezing in. I tend to have a lot of sacral instability because I'm quite mobile, and that squeezing the block between the inner thighs gives you enough engagement that your sacrum won't destabilize or go too far in that pose. So just another suggestion, depending on your own body and what you're feeling. Yeah. So belly up core work, I think we've kind of covered what is needed. I mean, cat-cow is going to be the best. That hug the baby in. Just don't do the belly up core work. It's a lot of strain on the abdominals. So Kelsey's showing it right here. You can see the huge difference in the belly and when she releases it and hugs it in. But yeah, this is not a time for belly up core work. This is a time for focusing on the deep core and safe abdominal toning.
Yeah. And I mean, that's work. Like, you can work on yourself doing that. It's, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, like, easy, I got that. But it really is work to lift.
Like, I don't know, later in pregnancy, 5 to 8 pounds, even very end, 10 pounds of weight right there. 10 pounds might be a little bit more challenging, or maybe I would even say contraindicated. So don't do it. If your baby happens to be that big and the last few weeks of pregnancy, it's not as needed. You can do the same thing seated without putting as much pressure on the abdominals. So yeah.
Also that hammock posture, especially later on in pregnancy, encourages the baby's spine to be towards the navel.
That's true.
Rather than towards your spine, which is a lot harder of a labor when you're spine to spine.
Right.
So creating that nice hammock encourages baby to get into the correct position for labor. So even better at the end of pregnancy, even if you are just hanging out like this, not doing anything, you're doing something because you're encouraging baby to be in the right position.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I would say even like resting your arms on your couch if you're doing this at home and letting the belly hang. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. So encouraging the baby's spine to turn so the spine is against the belly rather than back against your spine.
Yep, and birthing balls as well.
Yeah.
Just being home in that position is so nice.
Exactly. So many of these postures can be used for labor specifically. It's so wonderful. So then inversions, so that is going upside down, and inversions include headstand, which I would say is a no, because this neck, the cervical spine, is not made to take the weight of your entire body, right? And especially in our world where we're doing text asana all the time and we're looking forward and leaning forward, with forward head posture, just avoid headstand. Handstand, it's just not necessary. Forearm stand, same thing. I know some mamas who had very advanced inversion practices pre-pregnancy, maybe they were gymnasts or otherwise, and they were able to maintain it. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything dangerous about that, but I think if that wasn't your practice before, don't work on it while you're pregnant. It's just not help.
It's not the time.
Yeah. Your weight's changing anyway, the belly, all of that. So it's just not time for that. Even shoulder stand, I would say, because there is a lot more weight. So shoulder stand, you're going to be balancing on the back of your head and neck, ideally on the shoulders, but for most people to access the shoulders is hard. Plus you've got this belly and all of a sudden it's going to go up. So into your rib cage, just really uncomfortable. The other inversion to consider is downward facing dog, which Kelsey showed that you could do puppy pose as an option, or what she did on the couch already. So that's another downward facing dog, or you can push into the wall.
Is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You can get all of the same sensations, and again, if you're experiencing a lot of the heartburn, a lot of indigestion, or if, like me, inverting and being upside down in down dog just doesn't feel good, this is just such a great space to be in.
Yeah.
But again, my legs are really wide. I've got them as wide as my mat. So for down dog, my legs are very wide.
Yeah.
So that
you're just accommodating for the size of the belly. Some may need the feet wider than others. And you may notice that as belly grows, and especially when baby drops, you want your feet even wider. So,
and you won't necessarily need them as wide as me right now, but you'll notice in your practice they'll just feel better, wider and wider apart.
Yeah. So just sensing what's working for you, what feels best. That's going to be the best bet. So the next one is practicing hot yoga, and this is one that gets so tricky because I know that power vinyasa heated is so popular, and so many people, myself included, just love the heat and want to practice in the heat and want to continue that. And to some degree, yes, our bodies adapt, but you have to consider how much more blood your body is creating. You need that hydration. You need the water. The hot practices are just not so conducive to that. Plus the dizziness, lightheadedness that comes along with that, blood pressure. Also, there are some actual risks to the baby here. There's developmental stages when there are neural tubes in the brain, there are heart valves, there are so many things that if your body temperature heats up above a certain level, then it can impede the growth of the baby. And why would we want to take a risk for that? And this is why there are signs on every sauna and hot tub that you walk into that say, don't go here when pregnant. And that's why, because you don't want your core temperature to rise above a certain level. What are your feelings on that, Kelsey?
Well, I completely agree. Even taking hot baths is not really recommended for the developmental, properties. I think it's earlier on that it's way more dangerous. But baby's heat rises as your heat rises, and when you're submerging yourself in the tub or in a classroom where you're not getting any cool, air or anything like that, your body temperature's rising, and it's just like you're not boiling your baby, but your baby's submerged in water, which then gets heated from your body temperature. So I don't find it comfortable. I even took out of, because I was pregnant early on, while all of the fun outdoor yoga events are going on. And I found I took out of my practice anything that was too late in the morning, and only did those really, really early outdoor sessions because it just got too hot to even practice outside. And doctors will tell you not to exercise or run. They tell you to do that indoors in air conditioning for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I feel like the benefits of practicing in a hot room are not enough to outweigh the risks, which can be quite serious risks. So
And
even though,
yeah,
huh,
you already have relaxin going through you, so
yes,
you've already got that extra flexibility that you gain from when your muscles are really hot. And in my opinion, practicing prenatal is more of that strengthening where you need it instead of letting go and opening, because your body's already naturally doing that. So heating up the muscles that are already relaxed, you could go too deep into a pose. And if anybody's ever gone too deep into a posture, you know that can be pretty painful afterward, the side effects of practicing too deep.
right, exactly. And I think in the general exercise and physiological science world, there's some arguments against practicing hot yoga as well. So, and this is for anybody. And I love hot yoga. So for me,
I do too. I couldn't wait to not be pregnant so I could do a hot
right.
yoga class.
So just something to take into consideration, just for your health and wellness, and also really truly for your babies. This is a time of, like Kelsey said earlier, it's enough. Noticing when it's enough, and being with what is enough for your practice, for your body. So
And
yeah.
it's such a short, I mean, it seems like forever when you're in it, but really it's such a short period of time that it's just, it's like, oh, well, you can't, you're not supposed to drink when you're pregnant either. It's just something that you're giving your body a rest on, and you'll come back to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a practice of acceptance for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So the last one that I listed is breathing techniques, and specifically breathing techniques like Kumbhaka, where it's a breath retention, like you inhale and hold the breath, exhale and hold the breath. Just makes sense, right? It's hard to breathe anyway while you're pregnant. So breath
Yeah.
retention is not where you need to go. Also the heat building kind of breaths, like Kapalabhati breathing, where you're really forcing the breath out over and over and over again. Again, the idea that it's building heat in the body, core temperature could rise. I think that's a smaller risk, but just the forced exhales are not that comfortable. And your body's doing enough to get oxygen through the blood that you have so much more blood and all of that. So yeah, so really the kind of breath that you need for pregnancy and or for delivery, for labor and delivery is that very slow, long exhale. Imagine that you're just breathing your baby out over and over and over. And so take those times to practice what you need to practice, which is the slower breath, calming it down, bringing that heightened state all the way down, practicing those kinds of skills. Do you have
Yes.
anything to say to that?
No, exactly that. It's like I was saying, prenatal yoga was better than any birthing class I took because you're practicing skills for labor. Taking any of these postures into labor with you, what feels good in your body. I always tell my students, just being aware of what you're doing and what may feel really good today, and it may feel really good in labor, or something else that we've practiced would feel really good in labor, and you've practiced it so you can go to it and experiment and see if that feels really good. Same with the breath, like you're practicing for labor. So you might as well take advantage of the time and practice breaths that are going to benefit you during labor, because that's such a key component to labor, is being able to breathe and have that control, and breathe through a contraction. You can always take a cooling breath instead of a hot breath, like drinking out of a straw.
Yeah.
Instead, that cools the body instead of heats it up. And you don't really want to be doing the breaths where you're making noise when nobody else is, but practicing those kind of breaths at home. I with Felix, with my girls, my two first pregnancies, I was terrified to be that lady that was like making all the noises. And I just didn't want to be that person. And practicing it with Felix, practicing it in class and getting more comfortable with just making a noise, whether that's saying, you know, your vowels, A, E, I, or U on your exhale, or just finding that deep, you know, kind of breath. I was probably so loud with Felix. I wasn't paying attention, but I was very aware that those noises that I was making, that we had practiced in yoga, really felt good to do and just let it out. So getting comfortable with yourself and being open to make a noise, just was fantastic. So, but that was really the only time I ever practiced those types of breathing, was again in a prenatal situation rather than a public class where they're not necessarily going to be doing that. But
no, I like that you bring that up. And I wonder whoever's watching, if you've ever been in a class where you've heard someone, when the teacher says, take a breath in and sigh it out, and they really go, ah.
Yeah.
It's that sigh. It's so beneficial, and we don't even notice, but it really is a great go-to during labor. It's a great go-to as a mom if you're holding a crying baby and you've got to regulate your own system, because you are the external regulator of this tiny baby who has a very undeveloped, immature nervous system. And so that breath is a real thing. And if you think of the sound Om, whether you like to practice it or not. Some people feel very uncomfortable singing Om at the end of class for various reasons. Hearing your own voice is scary, but also it kind of can conflict with some values if we get onto the spiritual or philosophical kind of discussion. But Om is comprised of ah, o, and so if you think of those three sounds as like ah, oh, these are all calming, relaxing sounds that we make naturally. And so take advantage of that in your yoga classes and your practice and all the time. And just notice, if you do those sounds, how does your body feel? Do you feel a little bit more tapped into that, that kind of middle state, not the heightened state, not the low state, but kind of right in the middle? And that's where we want to be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My girls even know when I sigh it out that they're like, oh, we better be.
Yes, totally. Yeah, and babies respond to it. So I teach postnatal as well, and babies really, like, you'll see them, they're all active and kind of making their noise, and as soon as mamas start going, the baby's kind of, whoa, what was that? So lots of skills that can be learned. And I selfishly liked, Kelsey, that you said that prenatal yoga is better than any birthing class. Not because I or you are a childbirth teacher or expert, but there are so many little things that we can interject into the prenatal class that moms can learn and take into the live situation of labor and delivery, and they get to practice it. And especially if they come to a weekly class, they get to practice it every week for a few months before having the baby. And so it really gets integrated into their system so that when they're in labor, then it happens naturally.
Yeah.
And that's where we want to be.
Yeah. And coming to that weekly class, like, not only are you surrounded by this community that is all going through the exact same things you're going through, but you're normalizing birth. You're talking about it, you're normalizing it, and it's just not this big scary thing. It's just something that happens to everybody that is pregnant. I even had a mom of one of my ladies. She was about to go into labor, and her mom was in town, and she texted me and was like, can my mom come to prenatal yoga with me? And like, yeah, of course she can. And even she said how amazing, like, her noticing her daughter and how she noticed that the prenatal class really affected her and changed her for such good things. It was such a compliment, first of all, but having people witness from the outside what a difference it makes, and the confidence she had in herself and being able to have a happy, healthy labor. Really, they both were saying it was because she attended regularly the prenatal class and just felt so good about it.
That's so beautiful to have that external validation solidifies it for her as well. I mean, that's really wonderful. Whenever anyone else says to you, I notice a difference in you. You've been practicing this prenatal yoga and you just seem so calm. That's even though that's external validation, it's so important to hear and know. So the fact that the mom even noticed a difference, that's so wonderful.
Yeah. So can't speak highly enough about trying to, and my life is crazy. If I wasn't teaching prenatal yoga, attending my own prenatal yoga class is hard, but finding that one class that fits into your schedule and taking the time out for yourself really will pay off.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kelsey, that I scheduled my prenatal class on the same time as yours.
I know, I really wanted to come.
That's really too bad. Because you need a class.
I know, postnatal.
Yes, come to those. Yeah. So to wrap up, is there anything you feel like we missed that mamas should hear? I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah, I feel like we covered everything that, I like to tell people and talk about, and but please reach out with any questions, or I'm part of the group as well.
Yeah. And the group is on Facebook. There's a group called Yoga Mamas. And so you can reach both of us there.
Yeah, just ask questions. No question is a stupid question. And even asking your regular yoga teacher, and hopefully if they don't have the knowledge of the question that you're asking, they would just tell you, and you can seek out another source, or I'm sure they have their own source that they can put you in contact with. But just ask and listen to your body. Trust your body. If it doesn't feel good, listen to yourself and trust your intuition. That's really what pregnancy and parenting is all about. It's just trust your own intuition. You're going to be flooded with a million different opinions, and you just have to take the pieces that you feel is right.
Absolutely. Well, Kelsey, do you have a website? I can't remember if you have a website, if people find you.
I'm on Facebook at Native Roots Yoga. I've been so busy with this pregnancy. I've been slacking on my due diligence of posting things, but I do have some previous posts you can always go back to. And I'll probably be posting more in the next few weeks after this baby comes.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'm much more active in my yoga things that I have going on when I'm not busy with a baby and a 16-month-old. So
you've been really busy the last couple of years.
Yes. But yeah, I'm always available. Just reach out and ask questions and trust yourself, and find a good class, and go to birthing classes and educate yourself. Read lots of books.
Yes, absolutely. Educate yourself. That's number one. Well, thanks for your time, Kelsey. And for anyone who wants to contact me, my website is Kristen Boyle Yoga. So that's KRISTEN BOYLE yoga.com. And again, I'm a yoga therapist, so I can work on many different levels, individual levels for birth preparation, after birth, all sorts of things. Work with couples. I think working with couples for birth preparation is amazing, creating that connection and communication. And the Facebook group is Yoga Mamas. I think that's about all you need to know for now. But thank you, Kelsey, and thanks to everyone who's watching.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.